Hi, we're on the CSX Rule Book, Chapter 10, Electronic Device and Radio Communication, effective January 1st, 2014. 1000, use of electrical devices by railroad operating employees. 1001, no individual should use electronic or electrical devices if used would interfere with the employees or on the railroad operating employees' performance on the safety-related duties. 1002, personal railroad provided with the electronic devices may be used in an emergency for a redundancy in a case of the radio or the communication failure. 1003, the radio operating employees must use the railroad supplied electronic devices in personal use. 1001, use of the personal electronic or electrical devices. 1011, power off and store all the personal electrical devices, including earpieces, when the train locomotive is moving. Any member of the crew is on the ground during the switching operation. Any railroad employee is assisting the preparation of the train or the movement located with the dispatcher, yard master, and operator offices. The 1012, the railroad operating employees must use the personal cameras while on duty and make use only the other personal devices for minimal personal voice and test communication when all the following conditions are met. The train locomotive is stopped. No member of the crew is grounded during the switch operation, and any of the crew is not located when the lead locomotive is in the place of the safety not closer than 25 feet of the nearest rail. No other employees on the ground assisting the preparation of the train, and all crew members hold on the job and all agree with the electronic and electrical device is safe. 1013, the using of following the personal electronic device is not restricted provided that they do not interfere with the performance of safety related duties. A medical device prescribed with the medical professional and approved for the use of the CSX medical department. A digital watch with those only purposes one as a timepiece and a standalone calculator. 1002, the use of the railroad supplied electrical devices. 1002 1, no individual located in the cab of the controlling locomotive should use the railroad supplied electronic or electrical device unless all the crews hold a job briefing and all agree on it is used to save. Use is safe. The only authorized use of the device is to perform the railroad business functional directly related to the duty of the employee. Special instructions specify the purposes of the device as authorized business. 1002 and 2, no employee operating with the controls train and locomotive shall use the railroad supplied electrical devices when A, the train and locomotive is moving, and B, any member of the crew is on the ground during the switching operation. C, any railroad employee is assisting the preparation of the train movement. 1002 3, the railroad operating employee outside the cab of the control locomotive may be used from the railroad supplied electrical device only when all the following conditions are met. All crew members holding the job briefing and all agree with the use of the device will not interfere with the distracting the safe of the performance of the duties. The employee is not engaged with the switching operation. The employee is not on the foul track, and the employee is not within 4 feet of the nearest rail. 1002 4, no part of this rule restricts the use of the following devices: electronic control system information display, either fixed or portable, within the locomotive cab, remote the control transmitter necessary to operate the train conducting the switch operation, and C, railroad issue radios, railroad approved electronic devices to monitor all air quality, noise, and the other environmental conditions. 1003, general radio rules. Use of the radios only to perform company business contributing to safety. And 1003 2, the employees must not knowingly transmit any of the false emergency communications, obscene, incident, profane remark, unnecessary, irrelevant, and unidentified communication. 1003 3, do not use radio communications to convey the instruction that would affect the overriding of the intensification of the fixed signal, except in the case of the train of the dispatcher providing the permission to pass a stopping indication in accordance with the operating rules. 1003 4, only a member of the safe and crew may transmit information about the position of the aspect displayed by a fixed signal to the train and engine employees. 1003 5, the employee must keep the radios in the on position with the volume adjusted to receive the communications and set for the proper channel. 1003 6, special instruction designated with the location of the base of the wayside station, hours of operation, channels aside with the station. 1003, non-railroad communication interferes with the radio and other wireless communications. The employee must attempt to determine the origin identified with the interference, report the occurrence to the proper authority, and must include the exact date and time, the nature of the interference, origin, and identification of the interference. 1003 8, only a person authorized with the Federal Communication Commission can make internal adjustments to the radio. 1003 9, employees must make the Federal Communication Commission representatives to inspect the radio equipment and require the FCC documentation. 1004, radio requirements of the train and on-track equipment. 1004, before departing in the original originating terminal, each of the train must be equipped with the following: one working radio with a occupied controlling locomotive, and one of the following working radio on another locomotive, and that consists on the other means of wireless communication. 1004. 2. When the railroad workers are present in the train have access to the worker location and adjacent tracks, the following apply. Each of the employee in charge alone with the worker must have immediate access to a UB or equipped with a working radio, monitor the transmission of the train movements in the vicinity, maintenance of the equipment of the way, traveling together under the same authority without the locomotive assistance must have a working radio on at least one piece of the equipment, capability to communicate between the equipment traveling together, intra-group of the communications capability under reaching the work site. 1005, testing radio equipment. 1005-1, testing each radio wireless device of the communications device prior to the beginning of the work assignment. Initiate the voice transmission with another radio, receive the information of the clarity. 1005, when a radio wireless voice communication device fails to be required of the test, the employee must remove the device from the service, report the failure to the dispatcher and yard master, and establish the other means of communication to ensure the safety and reduce delay. 1005-3, when a working radio on occupied controlling locomotive fails en route, the train can continue until the earlier of the following. Next calendar day inspection is performed, reaching the next forward location where the facilities are available to repair and replace the radio. 1006, positive identification. When a required to provide positive identification, the employee must provide the name and initials of the railroad, the name of the location of the base and wayside station, the yard office, and unique designation, mobile radio, and unit words to identify the precise mobile unit, individual's title, name, and the, if applicable, location of the equipment, including track. Train, the train number, and the word locomotive filed with the initials and the number of the location of the equipment, including the track. And D, on-track equipment of the letters OTE, initials, numbers, and location of the equipment, and including the track. 1006, 2. Employees may use the short identification using the locomotive number and switching the classification. Similar operations when wholly within the yard after establishing positive identification. 1006. If any exchange of the communication using short identification continues with an interruption, positive identification must be repeated every 15 minutes. 1007. Transmitting by the radio. 1007-1. Before transmitting by the radio, listen to ensure the channel is not being used. Use the positive identification procedures to identify the station calling from and to, and receiving acknowledgement before proceeding with the transmission. 1007-2, the clarifying the pronunciation using an appropriate procedure of words, pronouncing them and spelling them if needed to spell, using again with the phonetic alphabetical table, initials pronounce, and if needed the use of phonetic alphabet. Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta Echo Foxtrot Golf Hotel India Juliet Kilo Lima Mike November Oscar Papa Quebec Romeo Sierra Tango Uniform Victor Whiskey X-Ray Yankee and Zula. 1073, state the numbers and digits, decimal points by the word of the point and or dot and exact multiples of 100 and 1,000. 1008, receiving action upon the ending of the railroad transmission. 1008, do not act on the radio communication if misunderstood, not completed, or not in compliance with the operating rules. 1008, 2, the properly acknowledged radio transmission by positive identification, unless doing so interfering with safety, repeating the transmission step when it relates to the yard switching operations is record of the message with the automatic alarm device is general nature and does not contain any of the information, instruction, and advice affecting the railroad safety and the train movement. 1008, repeat the radio communication for the train dispatch with the government the movements of the train on track equipment control tracks before acting upon any of the instructions by both parties and conforming the mutual understanding of the communication given their initials to their other party. 1008, and all radio transmissions not related to the yard switching and with the following: the word over where the response is required and the positive identification followed by the word out when responsible is not required. Response is not required. 1009, information that must be copied. 1009, employees must operating the moving trains or the equipment must not copy or repeat the copied information. 1009, information received the copied must only be transmitted to the moving equipment when it can be received or copied without impairing the safety. 2, the receiving employees not operating with the controls of the equipment. 3, the restriction is not within 3 miles unless movement has been unstopped or employee operating the controls of the equipment has been advised that the situation can comply. 1009, 3, the following procedures below transmit the repeating mandatory directives. Step 1, responsible party, train dispatcher, into action, call the employee of the train, address with the stated intention to transmit the mandatory directive. 2, receive the employee, state the title, name, and the location, confirming the prepared to receive the mandatory directive. 3, train dispatcher, responsible parties for the state name of the person copying the mandatory directive, transmitting the mandatory directive. Step 4, receiving employee party, copy the mandatory directive in the writing on prescribed form in the prescribed format, read back to the train dispatcher dispatcher which has been written. Step 5. The trained dispatcher, per responsible party for the ensuring the accuracy, repeated directive, state time, and initials of employees authorized to issue the mandatory directive. 6. In receiving an employee, the action is record the time initials given and acknowledge the trained dispatcher repeating the information stating and receiving the employee's initials. 1009. For only those addressed for the mandatory directives may act upon them. Acting on a mandatory directive, the employees affected must each have a written copy making certain all the members of the crew work in the work group read and understand it. 1009. When the mandatory directives have been fulfilled, annulled, or canceled, the employees must clearly mark with the directive with an X or retain the EC1 for the periods of 7 days. 10,010. Emergency transmissions. Emergency transmissions have prior authority over all the other transmissions. Employees are not involved with the transmitting. Responding with the emergency transmission must keep the channel clear for the duration of the emergency communications. 1010-2. When making the emergency transmission, transmit the words emergency, emergency, emergency. Describe the situation and location. If no response is received, take the necessary actions to ensure all safety. 10.3. We use the emergency transmission to report accidents, emergency application of the air brake, storm washout, flooding of the effect of the safe rail operations, failures of the right of way to the bridge, of the track obstruction on the track, and any other conditions that cause injury in employees, the public, and the derailment of the damage to the property. 10.10.4. The state transmitting the emergency message of the broadcast of the words emergency message terminated when the normal radio communications can resume. Alright, Chapter 11, Protection with the Bowels and Blue Signal Protection.